So, given the fact that we have different approaches, each country has their own way of looking at how sex work goes on or should have prohibitions in their own societal values. What do you think about India? What is India doing with these laws and the sex work?
So in India, one of the largest areas where um, sex work is like there is an entire sex industry, which is recognized worldly, is Sonagachi in West Bengal. And one of the researchers who have actually done extensive amount of research with it, that 50 sex workers were involved in the entire research process, and various other communities and committees as well, was that so the entire um, approach was that there needs to be a legal ethnography of sex work in Sonagachi. And it explained, I think, what is needed at the moment is to understand how the entire sex industry works before we get to a conclusion of how to solve the problems in it. So the way that it works, to the point that I read, is that firstly, there are two approaches to it. One would be the abolitionist approach, and second would be the individualist approach. Firstly, we say that you eliminate sex work completely. Secondly, in the second approach, we say that there needs to be choice given to the workers themselves. So we say that if they want to do it, they can do it, otherwise, they would not. But in that, um, the most modern approach which is being adopted is that we need the second part, but we also need to recognize the problems with it, human trafficking being the most important one. So now, if we try to understand it, we think of it as a triangle. So there are 3 points, and in 3 points, we locate first would be the relation of um, various stakeholders who are involved, the various people who are involved in the sex industry. So first, we say that the labor relation. Second would be the tenant relation, and the third would be the service relation. So the labor relation says that there is a relationship between the brothel keeper, the person who is appointed with the responsibility of um, managing the entire um, house or place where sex work takes place, and second would be the sex worker. So the labor relation comprises of two people. One would be brothel keeper, and the second is the sex worker. The tenant relation is a relationship between the landlord and the lessee being the sex worker, or the landlord and the brothel keeper. And the third point is the service relation. So, of course, the service relationship is the relationship between a sex worker and the customer. So, when we go to all of these points in the triangle, we would see that the current laws which are there in India, that is the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act of, I think, 1986. Um, Various sections of the law are going to criminalize various points or various stakeholders in the aspect. So firstly, I think um, completely. So I think the preamble of it, it says that in, I think, all right, I'm going off on a tangent a little bit on this, but the ITPA was not as it is today earlier. So it was, firstly, it was in 1956, it was the SITPA. I'm forgetting the entire name right now. But when it came, um, when it was like the first draft of it, it said that in the preamble, there was a different, um, different kind of wording than it exists right now. So there was trafficking and sex work involved in the same sentence. And do we do you think that the labor relation or the tenant relation or the service relation, all of the three stakeholders which are there involved in the process, need to be, say, kept under legislation?
Mhm. Okay. So, given the fact that the preamble did have wordings included trafficking and sex work, but they don't have those right now, I think sex work and trafficking are two different things. I mean, human trafficking does happen first, and sex work happens later, or it even might be the result of human trafficking altogether. So, if we include these two terms under legislation, I guess it would be governed properly, and we could then also put them under labor laws, uh, where these people can get protection with these labor laws, and then they can choose what work they're going to do, and they could also be protected from being trafficked or from being misjudged or abused or raped by the authorities, which seem to have power over them, which don't let women or even pimps for that matter have their own uniqueness to their work. Police, as I have seen in many cases, do interfere, and this happens all over the world. It is not just limited to India. This happens all over the world, that police probably are not very well educated in how they should be handling sex workers or even that community altogether, and so they end up entirely bashing them up or abusing them or even extorting money from them at times, which should have been the opposite, where these sex workers could have just simply put their trust on these authorities for protection, which they have
Now,
not.
I think there's a wide difference between, of course, there's a wide difference between sex work and human trafficking. So, I mean, in order to go in depth about and touch all of the points that you said, I think one of the key things that we need to recognize is that the ITPA, the current Immoral Traffic Prevention Act in India, has a lot of bias. And the bias being basically the points where the system goes wrong, let's say, for the sake of oversimplification. So, among the structural bias that the problem areas in the entire structure of the current existing legislation is that, number one, there is bad faith. The point where you said that police officers are corrupt, and police officers along with politicians can a lot of times keep the brothel keepers from being reported, or they don't enforce the laws stringently. And the other would be that there are a lot of procedural biases, that in the legislative system, we, even if someone does report about a brothel keeping, say, place, uh, the 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 case is filed a lot later. There is a lot of delay in the process, due to which basically the case is not reported, or somewhat or the other. Now, I think that the bias that is there, the structural bias, it leads to a lot of discrimination against the sex workers, in that criminalizing sex workers uh, who are in, so it gives us a viewpoint that uh, sex workers are criminalized because they live in a capitalist and patriarchal society, and therefore the problem may not ever be solved, because how do we get out of capitalism? um, I think if we run through the statistics, um, from around 1997 to around 2001, there were around 65,000 cases that were reported in India, uh, of people who were arrested completely. And 90% of them were females, and 90% of them were arrested under the ITPA rules. So the problem is that the first problem is that it does not account for the differential nature of the sex industry. That firstly, there are various stakeholders in it. Now, if we go towards how it works, again, the labor relation is between a relationship between the brothel keeper and the sex worker. So, one of the legislations under the ITPA says that the place where brothel keeping is, um, so sex work is not criminalized, right? But brothel keeping is can be criminalized, and workers who live there may not be criminalized, but the place surrounding it, if it's not legal for them to live in that place, how can the sex work be performed? How can they work there in the first place? The second is the service relation. So there are a lot of laws which say that, again, sex work is not criminal, but the customers, who are people who are taking advantage, using the sex work, or the customers of sex work, are they will be penalized for it. The other part is that the tenant relation. So in Sonagachi, there are a lot of workers. There are different levels and types of workers. One, that there is bonded labor. The second are people who are in, say, they are called adhiya. So there are three types in it. One is chukri, the other is adhiya, and the third is independent. So chukri means that small girls, and this is basically bonded labor, and this is basically small girls being trafficked for the purpose of sex work. And the second is adhiya, which means that adha means half. So being half, it's kind of midway. It's mostly like brothel keepers, and it's kind of consensual sex work. And the third one is absolutely independent sex work, where people from various cities can fly in to Sonagachi and do the work and then fly back. Or say the residents who are living in Sonagachi, they do the work, and that is completely independent. There is no brothel keeper involved. There is no one who is forcing them. So when we put the ITPA, when we put one entire legislation towards all of these stakeholders, there are so many people involved. There is the brothel keeper, there is the landlord who owns the place, there is the police, and there are the customers. So all of these people, plus all of the categories of sex workers that are there, small girls, consensual sex workers, and the independent sex workers. If we put one legislation for all of these people without giving any consideration towards where or how practically implementable those laws might be, and whether these people might be able to recover from the penalization of their work, then I think that's extremely problematic. That is uh, basically the problem.
So are you saying that if we put them together under one legislation, it might not be practical for them to practice their profession? Or is it that there is so much of vagueness that we don't know how the practicality would apply?
What I'm trying to say is that um, there is vagueness, and there is no, if we say, if we take a common example, is that if a person who has never been in someone's shoes tries to make laws about them, tries to discipline them, they do not know what it is to be in their place. They don't know how that thing works. Say that if the policeman was never a civilian, or say the army person was never a civilian, he would not know uh, how a normal person's psyche might be. He has to learn how a normal civilian psyche is, and therefore learn to act in a way that might be persuasive to them. So, in a similar manner, I think that people who are making the laws, we approach it in such an idealistic form that we say that, oh, we need to discipline these people, we need to bring them straight to the line. But we don't even consider what exactly it is that they want.
I am trying to understand your point.